Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Welcome to the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting Monday, June 3rd, 2024 at 7:04. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitahan. Here. Counselor Page.
Here.
Counselor Kendall.
Here.
Counselor Sheldon.
Here.
Counselor Smith.
Here.
And Counselor Martinez. Are excused this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Lori. Item 6 is our consent agenda. Tonight we have the approval of this evening's regular session agenda. And we also have the approval of May 20th City Council minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that we need to be aware of? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda is public comment. This is the time that we wish to hear from the public on items that are not on the agenda. And I have one person here at Jesse Mays, Greg Brown. Would you please come up to the table, provide your address for the record?
Boy, 45 years I've been around here. I've never sat in the city council, even when I spent almost 20 years on the school board. First time for everything. My name is Greg Brown, 28525 Northwest Fern Flat, North Plains. This is referendum oriented. Nothing to do with litigation, nothing that we shouldn't be talking about.
And so you have less than 5 minutes to speak.
I understand.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about something. There was an article in the News Times the day after the measure, which Mayor Lenahan was quoted. The recent vote on Measure 34-327 has highlighted a shared commitment among North Plains residents to prioritize our community's livability and manage growth responsibilities, Lenahan said. Regardless of how we voted, our common goal is to ensure our town thrives. That's beautiful. Well said. Well said. And that really cuts to what's got to happen going forward. But then the article went on to say, and I quote, the public official went on to say the confusion could have played a role in the results, claiming that opponents of the measure, quote, resorted to spreading misinformation. Boy, misinformation is bad for everybody, regardless of where it comes from, regardless of the source. Good decisions can only get made with accurate information. I did some background consulting for the group that got this on the referendum. I've done this sort of thing a number of times around the state over the years. And one thing I hammered on them about early on is you be accurate on everything you say. It's credibility, and credibility is key. Mayor Lenahan, when you say the opponents resorted to spreading this information, something needs to be corrected there. Nothing else, I need to have a chat with some people. But before I do that, I need to know specifically, what were you referring to?
The map that they presented.
The map, the city map.
The map that they presented was incorrect.
Which
If you saw the before picture and the after picture was incorrect.
so
Because we don't have an after picture yet.
I see.
The
I see.
aftercare is concerned in concept planning.
Now I see what you're talking about. Let me make sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I see. I remember on one of the flyers, I think this is what you were referring to, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the flyers, a photo overlay of what the outline, which I believe was correct, could look like if it were developed in a particular way. Correct?
That's the map that I am referring to. That's misinformation because the city has not gone through a concept planning with our community in order to determine the zoning and locations of housing, commercial, and industrial. And that was a misinformation and misrepresentation to the city residents of the city of North Plains. And I stand by those words.
And I'm gonna add, that implies that a process has been started that hasn't been started. That is wrong, that is unfair, and that is uncalled for, and that is unacceptable.
Councilman Sheldon, I'm gonna ask you, please bring it down a notch or two.
I don't have to bring it down.
It'll be a lot better process if everything.
Well, you got your time, speak your piece.
Our common goal is to ensure our town thrives. The kind of tone you're adopting does not lead to that. This town can go forward now. All of you received a letter the day after the election talking about that process and what the group who prevailed very heavily wanted to see happen. That letter was extremely sincere. But with a tone like that, that's going to sabotage it. And that's not good for the city. Are we clear? Speaking of this information, are we clear that the urban growth boundary expansion was not mandated by the state? Did that email from DLCD make that very clear?
That has yet to be determined. And we are conferring with DLCD.
You saw whose letterhead name was on
And
that.
I also saw a quotation that was definitely taken out of it was misrepresented, and that will also be corrected as well.
What quotation would that be?
It was the quotation by Ethan Stuckmeyer.
Development manager at DLCD. So you're
a
saying
housing-
he was
he's housing.
misquoted?
It's a printed attachment to a letter that is a matter of public record that was sent to each and every counselor in this city. You can go look it up.
Yes, I know the attachment. Sir, I wrote that letter. I know what that letter said. I did the redactions on that email. I know what was in that email. I'm very familiar with it. That letter was meant very sincerely. The whole basis of that referendum was that the city was mandated to do it. Somewhere along the line, you folks were given inaccurate information. And that's bad for everybody. That's a good example of what misinformation can cause. The city's in a marvelous position right now because of the 10,000 resident limit on the requirement of expanding UGB. North Plains can do whatever it wants to do, whatever its residents want it to do. That is a marvelous position to be in. And I sincerely hope that the city takes advantage of that. Back to your particular.
Sir, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Last thing I will say is it would be better, much better for the residents if the tone up there changes a bit. This can be collaborative or it can be a fight.
Thank you very much for your time.
And I think the key word there is residents.
Sir, I was doing things for the city of North Plains before you lived here. I was on the school board for North Plains long
Sir,
before you lived
Thank you
here.
very much for your time.
That is fantastic.
Thank you very much. Lori, are you aware if we have any additional public comment or from folks online?
There are some online. Can you hear me?
I believe, is it Mandy Hagedorn, you had your hand up first. Could you please state your address for the record?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Excellent. My address is 307 Northwest Brookings Court. Awesome. Hopefully this is just a yes or no question. Hopefully this won't be too painful. On May 21st, the residents voted against the city's proposed UGB expansion, and they did so resoundingly by a 72 to 28% margin, with almost twice the voter turnout of this county. In light of this vote, what does the city intend to do with the pending litigation? Will the city continue to attempt to invalidate this referendum? Hopefully this, and my request is to answer this with a yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, and at this time, I am not going to comment on the legal case because it is still pending, but thank you very much for your question. Next up, we have Tori. Would you mind speak? Your hand is raised. Would you mind stating your full name and address for the record?
Sorry, this is my wife's cell phone. My name is Aaron Nichols, and I live at 11,000 Northwest Jackson Quarry Road, Hillsboro, Oregon, 97124. And I'm speaking today just on behalf of Friends of North Plains Smart Growth and about the forthcoming revisioning and engagement around the UGB process. Our organization was really happy to see the city in the new section of the website that we look forward to the citizen engagement and to working together with the community with positivity and respect to make North Plains the strongest community it can be. Our group couldn't agree more with that. Like the city, our group sees a need for expansion, and we want the expansion that complies with state laws, that respects the land use planning system and respects the will of the residents and the voters of the city. And to be clear, we're not no growth. We do expect the city will grow, and we do want a good process around that. And I think like you, we think that good process starts with community engagement. And we'd be very happy to put our resources and our time and our efforts towards good community engagement with the city. And we think that we're well positioned to build trust with the 3/4 or so of voters who rejected 34-327. And like you all, we'd much rather see those people at the table than at the ballot box. We'd very much welcome meeting with any city staff or city council to discuss how to move forward and how to vision a new and better UGB plan. And I guess like Greg said, we also think that North Plains is in a unique and kind of fortunate position. It has a chance, unlike a lot of Oregon cities, to make really its own path and to decide without too many state mandates what it'll look like in 20 years. And unlike a lot of cities, it has the luxury of time to make these decisions. The DLCD has agreed that cities under 10,000 people don't have to start an EOA or an HNA process. And the city's EOA, that while it's acknowledged, does not require the city to take extra land. And the HNA is as yet unacknowledged by the DLCD. So that means the city can take its time to do outreach, to craft a plan, and to move when and how the residents want. And that freedom is something I hope that the city can embrace as we move forward and use that latitude to craft a model UGB plan, like one that a lot of other small cities can look to, and one that really works for the residents of the town and those who live nearby. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online wishing to speak? All right, let the record show. No one else? Thank you. All right. We'll move on to our presentation. This evening we have a presentation of AA with Right Connection. And I'll go ahead and invite you up. Hi. Would you both be kind enough to make sure that you use the mic just so folks online can hear you properly, and then name and address for the record, and business address is totally fine.
Sure. Rest of Parvati, I'm with Washington County, so 155 North First Avenue.
Angeline Mary, Right Connection, Northeast Region.
Yeah.
I think that's better.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Very much so. Well, good evening, Mayor Lanahan, City Council. We'd like to be here this evening to talk about public transportation in North Plains and the projects that Washington County Right Connection are working on to improve that, specifically with the Westlink service in North Plains, and also some shuttle stop enhancement projects that we're doing for the county. So, you can go to the next slide. And I'm Russ Barghouti. I'm Senior Planner with Washington County in Land Use Transportation, and Tangerine Behair, she's a Lead Service Planner for Ride Connection.
I just also wanted to call out that Julie Bilkey-Pilmo, she is the Ride Connection CEO, she's in the audience.
So our agenda today, I'm gonna give a brief overview of the transit development plan process and how we program investments in transit service in Washington County. And then we'll talk about, Tangerine will give a brief overview of Ride Connection, the services they offer, as well as the planned improvements for the Westlink shuttle in North Plains. And then I will talk about our shuttle stop enhancement projects. There's 2 ongoing projects coming on, we can give you an update on. And then we'll do a quick Q&A if there's any questions. So briefly, the county is required every 2 years to develop a transit development plan. This is under House Bill 2017. We are responsible to program service for the area of Washington County in the green there. So outside of the TriMet and SMART districts, we stand a transit committee, which the mayor sits on, as well as other members of the rural community in Washington County. We focus not only on the rural area, but also on how to connect areas outside of the TriMet district or outside of Washington County into the TriMet district, which is again in blue there. And then also in the urban area, we deliver services called first class mile shuttles. These are community connectors that serve parts of the urban area of Washington County that don't have good TriMet service today. So we help fill in the gaps in this system. Next slide. So we contract with Ride Connection as our public transportation service provider. They operate the shuttles as well as a host of other services in Washington County that Tangerine will go into briefly. They help us leverage private, local, federal, and state resources to help fund these improvements. They also help lead our community partnerships and engagements as we work on planning these investments. And I'll pass over to Tangerine to talk more about Ride Connection.
Ride Connection, we are a private nonprofit. We provide transportation in the Tri-County area. We are the providers in Washington and Multnomah County. A brief history about Ride Connection. We began in the mid-1980s as when a TriMet Citizen Committee recommended that a volunteer transportation group be set up to meet the needs of older adults and people with disabilities. We did our first ride in 1988 as a climate project, 1986. And then in 1988 is when we actually did our first project as a climate, as a Ride Connection private nonprofit. We serve a lot of, it's not just older adults and people with disabilities, we also serve the general public. Next slide, please. And so we have community connectors. Those services are free. They open to the general public. Actually, most of the services that we provide are free to the end user. Westlink is the one on the top that we're going to talk about. It's the one that connects to North Plains. We have GroveLink, which connects with the, it's basically a community service that serves Forest Grove. We have a new service coming on board called Cornelius Link, which is serving the city of Cornelius. We have North Hillsborough Link connecting, of course, Hillsborough Transit Center in the north portion of Hillsborough, and then we have Ford and Shep. So similar fixed route, but it can deviate off up to half a mile. We do have volunteer driver programs. We're always looking to recruit volunteers. If people have, 1 day a week or a couple of hours a week, we give them free driver training programs so that they can serve members of their community. We have shared vehicle agreements. Usually our fleet is meant for a specific service, but especially evenings and weekends, there's not much of use for that vehicle. And so we work with other partner organizations, nonprofits, so that they can use our vehicles. They do have to go through some driver training. Again, all of the services that we provide are free. But that is also another resource that is available. Door to door, like Reza was talking about, anything past like 158 Avenue, anybody, there is no eligibility can get to do. You do have to call 2 business days in advance for a ride and provide that service. Ride Together is another program. It's a program that is set up to empower riders to recruit their own drivers. So you can just do it for a friend, for a neighbor, and it's a mileage reimbursement program. It's only for the older adults and people with disabilities. Because there's a lot given there, but if there's anything that interests you, or you have any questions, I'll provide my email address and you can connect with me.
Is Ride Together, is that a newer, part of this program?
It's always been there.
It has.
Yeah, but I know there's a lot going on, so I just thought it would be good to highlight.
I'd like to get some more information about that.
Absolutely, and I have some brochures right here, so I'll
Okay.
pass that on to you.
As far as spending goes, would like Uber, vouchers be an alternative to some of the things that you have in common state volunteers? Or other things with some of the resources for like maybe a Uber voucher or a cell? It's just the volume, how much people are you actually observing? Versus being confident the organization, maybe Uber vouchers would be cheaper and more convenient.
You know, with the funds that we work, not necessarily Uber might work with it. They have to be like DUI, certain rules and regulations, and then Uber doesn't necessarily meet those regulations. So we tried Uber in the past, and so that's a tough one. Like Lyft, Uber, but we do work with other taxi cab companies to provide it if we are able to provide those services. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give you a broad overview of, what's the impacts, values, and benefits of transit, community connections, that quality of life, provide access to job, businesses, shopping, other services, mobility for residents and commuters, especially those who don't have access to a vehicle. We're looking for transportation for older adults, people with disabilities, and students and youth. And I think students and youth, there's 2 groups there. The students who are independent, who don't want to necessarily rely on their parents for a ride. And then you have the youth who are maybe ready for their own car, but maybe can wait a little longer till they're independent, can pay their insurance and buy a car. I think transit works for all of those options. And then it's a safe transportation option during inclement weather. We want to provide those connections to regional services like TriMet, Matilda Wave, and then Yango, just south of here, Washington. Next slide, please. So this is our existing Westlink service. It connects from Forest Grove to Banks to North Plains to Hillsborough. It's 4 round trips, Monday through Friday, and those are the schedules listed. Next slide, please. And so we wanted to expand the service, and we had a community survey. We had rider surveys, but the community survey is more like broad to get an idea of what do people within the community need. And so I think in North Plains, we had used the monthly newsletter, connected and tried to get the word out through that, through the utility bills. We got 170 residents, not just North Plains, just broad overview, North Plains, Banks, Cornelius, Forest Grove, that whole area. Social media, we got 170 residents, 20% were Westlink riders. Some statistics, 6% were North Plain residents. Try to get, and then 22% listed North Plains as a typical destination. And so we wanted to get an idea of what is their service priorities for Westlink. 46% said we wanted expansion to other areas, but when we actually looked at the data, they were talking about services that already exist, like getting to North Plains, getting to Banks. It's like that is what Westlink already does. So we looked at the second priority, which is extending service hours. And I think that's an important aspect because it doesn't tie you down to one trip, but gives you multiple options to get to a place. You don't want to be stuck in a place because, oops, the one trip that you were supposed to get on. So it gives you more of that option. And so we try to expand on that, extending service hours. Next slide, please. And so this is what, we're looking at expanding this summer. The green is basically what that additional early morning trip in the morning, connecting from Forest Grove, it's an express service going to Hillsborough Transit Center, and then from Hillsborough Transit Center, getting to North Wales, providing that trip, like an earlier morning trip rather than the 8:22. So an earlier morning trip and then goes, 11 o'clock trips. And so, one of the route modifications you see to the right is the current one is in green and the purple is kind of the new service. So we do the North Plains, on Pacific and Glencoe. That's our existing one, and the commercial, near the North Plains Senior Center, that's existing. The new one that we're going up north is a north and, 330. And then we're of course going to be at the Aspen Social this Thursday, getting the word out, letting people know about our services. And the new modification of North Plains. Next slide, please. I'll just give it back to you guys.
Thank you. So one of the recommendations from the county's transit development plan was to enhance their shuttle stops. A lot of the stops in Ride Connections system don't have signage, don't have good accessibility. People just aren't aware of the service. And so one of the top needs that we have identified is that we need to enhance these stops, make them more visible to the public, so people are aware of the services that Ride Connection are offering. So we've received two statewide transportation improvement fund, the STIF program, that's the statewide transit program. We received 2 grants in the last 3 years to do stop improvements. So as part of this work, the county will plan and pay for and install amenities like a landing pad for accessibility, or a shelter or a bench or whatever we feel like is warranted. And then what we do is we come to an agreement with local jurisdictions. We do intergovernmental agreements, and the local jurisdictions agree to take ownership and maintain those assets, so improvements for what we call a useful lifespan of 10 years. And North Plains has been such a wonderful partner because we've already have adopted an IGA with the city to install and maintain these improvements in the long term. The one thing that the cities aren't responsible for is signage, and that's because it just gives the county, or it gives Ride Connection the flexibility they need to change their service or change their schedule as needed. So we maintain control of the signs, and the cities maintain control of the other. Next slide. So if you've been on commercial recently, you've seen the snazzy new shelter. So this is part of what we did for our first phase. So we replaced the shelter. It was really at the end of its useful life. It's been there for over a decade. It was in pretty poor shape. So we got something new in. One of the things I want to mention is that the old shelters were made of glass, kind of fragile. We actually put in some what we call abrasion resistant polycarbonate. It's a tougher material that's hopefully more resistant to scratching or to shattering. So we're excited to be able to put this in. At Pacific and Glencoe, we put in a new landing pad. We put in a bench. There's a few miscellaneous items still need to be installed, like there's a trash can that's supposed to go up there, hasn't been put up there yet. We also have to put up some schedule holders. So attached to the poles, we're gonna have the schedule available so that we can see when the next trip is coming. And the signs have already been put up, but we need to actually make a quick replacement of those. There's an issue with the design. So we're gonna get that work done in the next few weeks, and we'll be ready to go by the end of this month.
Quick question.
Yeah.
For these, services and such. Wear and tear, damage, graffiti, how's that repaired?
Well, so what we do, so when we make an agreement with the cities, we do the IGA, they're responsible for the day-to-day maintenance, so power washing, if there's any graffiti, picking up trash, litter, it's really more just those day-to-day tasks. If there's something that's more extensive damage, that's something that we'll have to work with the city on to get that repaired. But yeah, the city has agreed to do at least that sort of day-to-day maintenance, make sure things are clean and in good working order.
Is there a maintenance schedule, like, is it gonna sit there for 10 years and just repair it? A lot of time, are you guys doing preventive maintenance every year?
So what we're required to, Yeah, what we're required to do as part of our agreement with the state, because it's a state grant, is that we have to submit the condition of the assets every year. So the cities actually have to submit a report to the county, which we pass along to the state. So if there's an issue that comes up as part of that report, we can at least flag it and make sure that we can find a way to fix it. As part of the maintenance schedule, I'm not sure exactly how often the city would be going out to do that power washing or whatever. It might be just on an as-needed basis.
I wasn't worried about that. I worried about if you guys do a check to see if there's anything that's bigger than, or anything that's been provided, you guys do a renovation.
Yeah, so as far as, I mean, we'll do, so the city has committed to doing that sort of check every year. So at the end of each fiscal year, we have to get that report. And if there's something that's structurally damaged, then our crews would come out and we would do a more thorough assessment and see what needs to be done.
Right.
We haven't gotten in that situation yet, so it's gonna be a kind of take as we go along approach. Next slide. All right, so this is the next phase of work that we're planning to do in North Plains. So this is a 2-year grant. It's supposed to expire at the end of next year, so we'll have to get the work done. Hopefully, knock on wood, we'll get everything finished by the end of next fiscal year, or I guess, yeah, next fiscal year. So as far as this work, we're gonna be, as Andrew mentioned, the new stop that's on North and 313. We're looking at just putting signage up there, but as part of that coverage expansion in North Plains, we'll be putting in a stop to serve that community. And then I'm really excited to announce that we're also going to be serving Glencoe High School as part of this route. So, you know, a lot of students who live in North Plains go to Glencoe High School, and so there's a pair of TriMet stops already on right outside the school property. The northbound side has a landing pad ready to go. The southbound side, as you can see in the photo below, there's a curb, there's a sign, but we're going to be working to put in a landing pad to make that stop more accessible. And then we'll just have to make a few minor tweaks to the IGA as part of this work. We're gonna have to be adding at least the new sign on North and 313th to that agreement, but we also have some new language we want to put in, specifically regarding the end of the agreement. So the way the wording is right now in the IGAs, it's kind of open-ended, and we feel like it's probably better to have it be a definitive end to the agreement, so the 10-year lifespan will match it up with that timeline. And then the city and the county can make a mutual decision on whether to terminate or extend that. So we'll be passing it along to the city for the review.
On your flyer and maybe even at the stop, I was thinking of a QR code, right?
Mhm.
And I was also thinking about how diverse our community has actually become, where we have many languages actually spoken in the community now. And so, you know, at this new stop or at the existing stop, you know, is there something there that if, you know, let's say I'm a second, you know, I have another language and, you know, I can't read English and I'm, you know, reading something else, is there a way for folks to be able to, you know, scan something in and then translate it so that they can better understand your scheduling, or maybe you can go to the website, whatever?
Let Tangerine answer that.
Yeah, we, on our Right Connection website, we do have different languages.
Right.
I mean, they can request for a specific brochure in a specific language. But on the top, they do have like, whatever language you want, I think it's part of the Right Connection website. Like, if you want to kind of browse through that in a specific language, you can do so.
So it's on the website?
Yes.
Not necessarily at the sites, at the bus stops themselves?
No, you have to, yeah, and then on the bus stops, it's kind of pretty standard, like no, like timings, hopefully that, like, there's nothing specific that people wouldn't understand, like especially maybe the stops a little bit, but we can kind of decipher, so it has a map and will have the stops, and so nothing specific as far as language.
Okay.
I think I have one more slide. So as far as our schedule goes, we're in the process of developing stop concepts. In North Plains, it's very simple because we're just going to put in a sign, but you know, with the work at Glencoe High School, we have some other more intensive capital projects going on throughout the county. So we'll be working on that, and then we'll take comments from the city and incorporate those into our designs. We'll also develop any amendments that we need to our IGA with the city, for the city's review. And then in the summer, we'll be submitting our plans for the right-of-way permit. And then we'll finalize those IGA amendments and get those, adopted. In the fall, we'll plan to release our, request for proposal and select a construction contractor and hopefully, construct our improvements installed by this time next year. Thank you. Any questions if you have them?
Well, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It was very informative, and I know that we have really appreciated the partnership with Bright Connection over the years, and we are evolving, as far as our need here in the community. So it's really great to see, the advancements that we're making as far as shelter and information and all of that, and even additional stops and, connections for families and students. So I really appreciate that and appreciate the presentation today. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the council?
One question, Alright, so the ridership, right, hi, so, which Kendall, is the ridership open in North Plains, the residents? Is it up?
I'm sorry.
The ridership from North Plains?
Um,
I'm just
yeah.
curious.
I am not sure.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't have the ridership information, but yes, we do keep a track of,
Right.
I'm willing to send you maybe the ridership and the council.
Great, thank you.
We're pretty confident that with these improvements, the signage, the
You'll get
other
more.
stuff improvements, we'll get more. We're adding the trip. It will be getting more ridership, and that will just encourage or give us the flexibility to increase service in the future. So
Thank you, great.
Yeah, I think one thing that we kind of struggle with a little bit is the marketing portion. It's a good service, it's just that people don't know about the service and just having that bus stop and having that visual like, oh, this is where it goes, these are the times. I think that would definitely help.
and I guess we should mention too, if folks aren't aware, that Ride Connection actually pays fare subsidy to Tillamook County Service. So folks in North Plains and Banks can actually take the wave to Portland, and it's free, right? Free fare.
Yes,
Yeah, so
you pay
that-
subsidy for every trip that is done. Yeah.
So that's something that's also probably not well advertised, and we should do a better job of getting out to the community. If they're not aware.
That would be helpful. Yep.
We do advertise, on the Tillamook Wave, it's advertised, on their brochures, but not necessarily on our brochures, but maybe that's something we should.
And then we're gonna see you this Thursday, correct? At the ice cream circle.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, I will not be there, but somebody from Ride Connection will be.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. We'll see you Thursday. Thank you. All right, next up, we have line A, B, and C. We have 3 resolutions to review and consider for approval. Jump over, I think, Bill, you've got all 3 of them, but.
Thank you, Mayor. Rob, would you like any part of this?
Well, Bill, I know you to be extremely competent, so I'd ask that you do it, please.
Okay, I'm happy to. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, council. So it's June, and you probably go to the grocery store somewhere and you kind of get chatty with the cashier, and they say, "Oh man, today's my Friday," and it might be Wednesday, and you're like, "Darn, I wished it was my Friday too." Well, June is my December. July 1 is the beginning of the fiscal year. June 30th is the end of the current fiscal year. So when June rolls around, that means a number of different things that we do to prepare for the next fiscal year and as we close out the current fiscal year. So before you tonight are the 3 resolutions you all who have been on council a bit have seen a few times over the years. The first one before you that I want to bring up is Resolution 2265. There's the staff report you've gone over, of course, but as you remember, even though we biennially budget, every year city councils have to authorize the amount of ad valorem or property tax, the rate that is going to be authorized by the city to be levied by the county on all taxable property within the city limits. And so the current resolution before you, 2265, if you choose to adopt it, lets me tell the county to levy the full permanent rate that is allowable to the city under Measure 50, and that is $2.1712 per $1,000 of taxable assessed value, or roughly $2.17. The property tax is the backbone of the general fund. But at the same time, the city has one of the lowest permanent rates. This $2.17 is among the lowest. So it's a particularly important piece to our general fund, even at that lower rate. So I stand for any other questions about it, but that's the first resolution before you.
Questions, council? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 2265 to declare a 2.1712 per 1,000 taxable assessed value ad valorem tax levy for fiscal year 2024-2025.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Next resolution is resolution 2266, establishing eligibility to receive state shared revenues fiscal year 24 to 25. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. The second and third of the three resolutions, that number 2 and number 3 here, resolution 2266 and 2267 are kind of twin resolutions. And in previous years, you've considered them, this council has considered them and adopted them basically at the same time because they're sort of married in what they do. Resolution 2266 is the resolution that City Council should consider adopting, and it recognizes and lets the state of Oregon know that the city of North Plains provides a number of municipal services under Oregon law, police, public works, a number of different departmental services that we offer. It lets the state know that the city does provide a number of those required city services that in turn qualify the city to receive shared revenues from the state, such as marijuana tax, alcohol tax, that sort of thing. So if City Council approves this and adopts this resolution, we let the state know that the city is 2266. We let the state know that the city qualifies to receive shared revenues, like it has for a number of years before. Resolution 2267 that goes with it, actually, if adopted by City Council, we tell the state that we would like those shared revenues that Resolution 2266 declares we are qualified for. So 2266 lets us declare that we're qualified to receive the shared revenues from the state. 2267 lets the state know we actually would like to receive them. The shared revenues that these two resolutions both we're qualified to receive, and we let the state know we would like them. They go into the general fund. They're what we consider unrestricted revenues. So along with property tax revenues, these shared revenues are split among the different core departments of the general fund to help fund core city services. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Or
Any questions?
What does the process look like for that? You send the state a bill?
Councilor Phage, no. They check for adoption of these resolutions that authorizes July 1 for the state to just continue sharing revenues on a monthly basis. And then based on the calculation of our population by Portland State University, they allocate to the city monthly revenues, our share of the state's intake of those types of tax revenues. And then they just transfer those funds directly to the city.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution 2266 and resolution 2267 to elect to receive state shared revenue and to certify that the provision of municipal services that establish the eligibility of the city of North Plain to receive shared revenues for the fiscal year 2024/2025.
All right, I have a first, do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, we have a first and a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Now, 9C.
Thank you, Mayor. 9C. Again, it's June, so one other the other kind of key resolution that City Council considers and will adopt every year once everything's finalized is a new fee, overall fee schedule for all city services for the new fiscal year that's starting on July 1st. Most years it's always adopted in June. Sometimes it's the first meeting, sometimes it's the second meeting of June. There's been a little bit going on at the city. So we're going to finalize our new fee schedule for you and present that to you for consideration on the June 17th meeting. But I just wanted to kind of walk through what's coming. A lot of it you already know from either the budget committee meeting we had a few weeks ago, or we've kind of talked about some things over the course of the past several months. So I just want to kind of give you an update. So in the master fee schedule for all of the fees that we charge, the vast majority of them, like the previous few years, we're going to propose to increase the fees by inflation over the most recent 12 months. And the CPI for Western cities, the Western CPI, is basically year over year. The most recent year over year calculation is inflation by 3.7%. So that's better than the 4% plus that we were looking at last year, but it's still not that really low inflation of 2.5, 2.6 that we experienced and planned for, basically before 2020. So that's the rate of inflation we'll be applying to most of the fees that the city charges on an annual basis. There are some exceptions. Number one, well, this isn't much of an exception, but it is a little bit, and it's worth noting. For the first time in 12 years, and consistent with the water rate study that you all adopted last year, water rates we're going to propose consistent with the budget to be increased by inflation as of July 1. And that'll be the first adjustment in, by my count, 12 years. Actually, the city's done a really great job of holding water costs at bay over time. But as our water utility study and rate study showed last year, we're just going to run into some maintenance and replacement problems over time if we don't start at least keeping water rates in line with inflation. So we're going to propose a plan for inflation of about the same thing, probably closer to 3.8% for water rates on July 1. So I just kind of want to set that, or kind of call that one out as a little bit different. Other rates that are going to go up, the transportation development tax, the county, of course. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
Councilor Sheldon has a question.
Can we know what that is on an average bill?
I don't have a specific estimate for right in front of me, Councilor Sheldon, but what I would say is that the average bill, the last time I looked in the city, if you just averaged across the board, it's about $85, $87. So just under 4% more. Yeah. I can bring the precise number back to you on the 17th, but that's cocktail napkin.
That's fine.
Okay.
I know that varies based upon the meter usage, but
Sure. For your average 3.
We can't really hear on the Zoom call. Can you guys speak in the mic, please? Thank you. Not you, Bill. You're doing a great job.
my question is, increase across the general households. We know what the rate is. My question is related to about what that equates to in dollars on average, not specifically in one bill.
Thank you. That Councilor Sheldon, I would go a little bit further and say that's for your average bill for your typical single family home with a 3/4 inch meter, which is by far the most common type in the city. Okay, the transportation development tax, which is the county administered impact fee basically for new development, new built space, whether it's commercial or residential or whatever it is. The County Board of Commissioners adopted a TDT rate increase that we are to comply with. They set the rates. We just charge the fee when new development happens. As of July 1, the board has adopted an 8.29% increase to the transportation development tax. So we will raise TDTs in the city by 8.2%, 8.29%, which kind of points to maybe some discussion or some consideration by you. For the past few years, we have been mirroring the rate of increase of the city's transportation SDC, increasing it by the same amount that the county increases its TDT, basically for parity. And so that would mean the city's transportation SDC would be going up as of July 1 by 8.29% as well. And so I just wanted to put that before you that, I mean, council sets the fee and the rate schedule, of course. But if that's the methodology, I just wanted, that's a fully city controlled fee. So I just wanted to put that before you if you had any questions or concerns about that.
Hearing none, but you will be bringing this back to us in June.
Well, yes, Mayor, in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the big intent here of kind of walking through this a bit is so that there aren't any surprises. You know, we kind of have kept you up to date. But the intent is to have a full fee schedule that is okay for you without too many appendices to it or modifications, because we will want to have a fee schedule adopted for July 1. So we wouldn't have any more city council meetings and before the July 1 date. That doesn't mean we can't move forward and consider it more, bring another one back to you in the first July meeting. We just would rather have it, put a bow on it before July 1 is all.
Phil,
Yeah.
When we use this information, we want to know in order to make a decision how much you're increasing to buy, whether it's a parity, what the end goal is. Are we doing a surplus, or a deficit? How is it looking for the longer term for the rates? For the way to know actually how it's actually applying now to how we're doing. You don't need that now. That's when we come up next. On the 17th.
Councilor Phage, it's a good question. I guess what I would say is, you know, where the balance, I assume you're talking about where the fund balances are and how the revenue that we're getting. I can talk a bit about that at the next meeting. The next meeting, I go into it a little bit in the last staff report because it covered the capital funds on because it was the end of the quarter. I guess really for this, it's the intent here is to make sure that we keep up with construction costs for street and other transportation facilities. And so at least that's kind of priority number one. Don't get behind on what the rates are. I will say that I'll just kind of put it out there that you might not recall, but when you adopted the new SDC methodology 2 years ago, you all adopted SDCs that were in the definitely in the lower half of total SDC cost for other cities in Washington County. So this rate increase, at least for the transportation SDC, if you go with an 8.29% increase, it doesn't bump you up into being non-competitive or more expensive than other cities. We're still going to be in the lower half for sure on transportation SDC. We just flat out don't have transportation SDC costs anywhere near what some of the bigger cities do. So anyway, that's also part of the context. I guess the last thing I would say, the parks SDC, it is set to what the engineering news record for construction costs are, based out of basically the Seattle index. That year over year was only 3.31%. So the parks SDC, we're planning to bring before you a 3.31% increase as of July 1 over this current fiscal year. And that is, that SDC is far more reflective of playground equipment and much lower intensity construction improvements typically than say streets and that sort of thing. So it is a different rate increase on that one. So that's what that one would be if we stay consistent with the engineering news record, CCI, construction cost index. The final thing I want to bring to you is we will be bringing some changes to fees. Departments have been going through a review of fees that we need to modify, whether they need to increase or actually a number of them need to decrease for purposes of being competitive, as well as just adequately reflect what our costs of service is. And so we'll get into the weeds of that with the staff report ahead of time for the June 17th meeting, but planning has gone through and done another cut at looking at a number of our development application fees and other related fees compared to a number of other cities. And actually quite a number of those are actually going to be recommended to come down and simplify in their structure actually. And I'll have those details, but I just want to give you a heads up about that. There are a number of fees related to new and water meter replacement costs and drop fees that for whatever reason were lost or dropped from previous fee schedules. Those fees are on the books. It's just for whatever reason they didn't show up in the fee schedule for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but anyway, we're going to bring those back and just kind of reconfirm. We've always had them. They're going to be formally appear in the fee schedule, and we'll be charging those when those things happen. Somebody's meter breaks or something needs to be redropped or what have you. So we have some fees that. Some fee modifications primarily from planning and development and public works that we'll bring to you and talk a little more detail with the staff report. So just a heads up about those as well.
Any other questions or comments for the?
I have one question. It's related to the county's decision on 8.29, which is a pretty stiff hike in my opinion. I think we should be a little sensitive to that. So I like to make sure in the report we get some reference as to, okay, number one, I'd like to know how they arrived at that decision or why they arrived at that decision. I'm short of going back and listening to a county commissioner's meeting, but and then maybe the 5 years, if we follow and track the TDT, I'd like to remember what those numbers are so we can have those in the preface to the rate. It just seems like it's a pretty stiff rate to me. I'm not sure that's the right way to go. If it's lower than other parts of the county, that's still fine, but I still want to understand it before I can support it.
Thank you, Councilor Sheldon. I'll be more than happy to do that. I do get background materials from the county program manager for the TDT, so I can chase that down and provide it to you fairly easily. And I just wanted to emphasize that the city's transportation SDC, that's your fee completely. And so if 8.29 doesn't sit well with you, especially after hearing what the methodology was or what the decision-making process was for the county, we defer to you all to find the rate increase that you think more appropriate.
Would you be able to provide that? I know you'll have it in your staff report, but maybe provide it ahead of time if it's dense reading, which I'm sure it is.
Mayor, I'd be happy to. We do get kind of a memorandum packet from the county. Yeah, and if it doesn't adequately explain the methodology used, I know where to get it, but I'll pull it out and send it ahead.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Bill? All right, hearing none. So, Rob, you have your first city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselors, can you hear me all right? Yes, okay. Thank you. You will find information in the packet relating to the city council business calendar. And also you'll find the city manager report, and I'll leave that as is unless you have questions. And if I can't answer them, I'll sure get you an answer quickly. I want to report on what I've done the last 2 weeks, and thank you first of all for your warm welcome. And also I'd like to report the city staff has been especially supportive, answered endless questions from me and pointed me in the right direction. I did find the coffee pot, and I worked with Andy the first week, and so I just followed him and I learned where the office was. But I'm making light of that, but staff has been extraordinarily helpful, and it's made my transition really comfortable. And I'd also like to report, I think the city's in nice shape. I think Andy did a nice job, and having been invited to be part of his interview process 6.5 years ago, he shined through the interview process, and I think has done extremely well the last 6.5 years. You've provided good support, and I think he's a quick learner. So that's all good news. And I've been taking over projects that Andy did, and just a reminder, these are things you either initiated or have been receiving updates on, but it includes council rules, the franchise ordinance, which is being recommended to go to a licensing process. I'm not leading ASR, but I'm familiar with it. We helped pioneer that in Beaverton, and actually prior to getting a call from the mayor, I had recently met with the ASR consultant. He's somebody I've stayed in touch with over time, and I think it's really positive about your leadership that you are supporting a look at ASR and implementing it. We in Beaverton and Cornelius implemented ASR, and you can get, in the case of just Cornelius, for example, 80 million gallons a year of water stored underground. And to set it up, it was the cost of a 3 million gallon reservoir above ground. And ASR is resistant to earthquakes, and it's just a really strong process, and it'll provide water for the city in an emergency when it's needed.
Would you state the acronym?
Oh, I'm sorry. We use a lot of acronyms in government. It's called Aquifer Storage Recovery. And it's a basic process. It's not really a well, because it's water that is stored more vertically underground between basalt layers. And you either have the right strata underneath or you don't. And apparently North Plains does. And the water is preserved. It requires just a little bit of chlorine added after it's being pulled out of the ground, because chlorine does naturally dissipate, but the water is clean and safe. And it's interesting, the whole process, because the clean water pushes the older water to the sides, and most of the water is recovered through the process. So it was a smart move. It's a huge money saver and gives the city security during either droughts or for some reason if the supplier goes down. So it's a good process. I think I haven't mentioned employee handbook yet. I might have. Also, the Joint Water Commission contract expires at the end of the year, and having helped negotiate a couple of those with Beaverton and Cornelius, and having worked with the Hillsborough staff, I'm hoping the process is neat and clean and collegial. Our law firm has been helpful on most of these, and they provide good counsel. We've also been working post boundary vote and starting to assemble information for you as we meet with you and present information. Hopefully it'll give you good information to arrive at whatever decision you decide to do, but we'll give you complete information, and if we don't have it, we'll get it for you. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any question.
There's one, just tracking, point on our council schedule. I'm just wondering if we can use that to, add a few of the topics that you are still working on,
Yes.
right? Just so that we can keep track of them as well. You know, a
Okay.
visual is always really good and it's a great reminder.
Okay. I'll probably a little further tomorrow on
Yeah.
your request.
No, that's totally fine. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question, and you may not know the answer, that's okay if you don't. And that is, I know that the Glencoe Opportunity Area property, GOA property on commercial, they were going to do some training there, and I believe I did see some of that. I'm assuming at some point they'll be finished with that and we'll look at a demolition schedule or something along those lines.
Councilor Sheldon Shanks, thank you for the question. Yes, a combination of agencies, including ours, did get together for a training, and if you had detailed questions, the police chief is here and he was involved in that. But the 3 buildings will come down, and I've done some outreach outside of this area to the state regarding some additional funding to help with cleanup. It's significant, but I think having a grocery store in this town, and at least the one that I've seen pictures of, would really add to the quality of life here. And so I'm putting a personal push on that to try and find sources that will help us, and with no payback, that we would have to pay it back, but it'd be grants.
Yes, I heard kind of love.
Pardon?
Forgivable loans, I hear kind of. One you'd have to pay back.
Oh,
That's kind of love.
yes, it is. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well then, good job. All right, are there any, council reports?
I actually got one question.
Councilor Schmidt?
Ice cream social, 5:30 or 6?
The $1 million question.
Okay, the ice cream social has a dual start time somewhat this year, and we did have an old banner, so we tried to make do. Our food vendors will be open at 5 o'clock, and then live music and ice cream scooping will start at 6.
Yeah, my wife said, I'm like, well, okay, I thought I had 5. Okay.
The banner over Glencoe is an old one that we've just taped a new number onto. So hopefully in the coming years, we will budget in for a new banner over Glencoe, in addition to the event.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's nothing else, I will go ahead and close our city council meeting at 8:13. Thank you all.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
It's 30.